Hey everybody, it's Sherry Dowder, your Dysgraphia consultant. I am here with Debbie Lund from Twofish Therapy down in St. Petersburg, Florida. How is the weather down there today, Deb?
It's actually, you caught us on a good day. It's been a little cold lately, but it's absolutely beautiful today.
What does cold mean for you?
On Dr. Seuss's birthday, as we all know as educators, everybody's celebrating this day.
Yes.
Well,
Yes, it is Dr. Seuss's birthday today. 100 and I think I figured out 116.
Wow, that's wild.
He would have been, yeah. So interesting man he was.
Very much so.
So tell us a little bit about how you became an occupational therapist. What led you to this wonderful field?
Well, honestly, originally I was, all my life, I've always wanted to be in schools. So I wanted to have some sort of role within the school system.
Mm-hmm.
And originally I was going to be like a teacher or a child psychologist and take that route. And I just I guess my passion for school was really the idea that, for so many people in my life and so many people that I've known, and I've worked with people with disabilities for years and years before I ever came an OT.
Mm-hmm.
School was actually more of an obstacle to them to being successful in life than it was a catalyst to their success. Do you know what I'm saying? Even
I know exactly what you're saying.
Neurotypical friends, people who are highly intelligent, high IQs. You look at successful people in the world all over the place who have made unbelievable successes in their life, who report the same idea. So I knew I wanted to work within the education system in that capacity of trying to break the mold and have people appreciate that there's different types of learning and try to advocate for that within our education system. And then when I learned of OT, how the model, the PEO model of OT, where you explore all the person's strengths and weaknesses. And
I like that model.
Oh, I love it so much, right? And then you look at their occupations or their tasks, so be it reading, math, writing, social skills, or play, whatever we're looking at. We look at all the components of that, and then you look at the environment that it's happening in. That's what the education system needs to be doing in designing education to fit everybody's needs, right? To create just right challenges for everyone. Yeah. So I had a real aha moment when I learned of OT, and that was happening. Professionals were doing that for individual people to enable education in schools. So I know it's a long story, but
no, it's wonderful.
Love OT. Yeah.
So you did a really great job of explaining PEO for those of us who are not, that are listening, that are not occupational therapists. PEO is a model that was created that really embodies the person, the environment, and their occupation. And so anything that we do in life is considered an occupation according to an occupational therapist. That means that brushing your teeth is an occupation. Washing your face is an occupation. So all those basic skills that we need to get up out of bed and survive is included in the word occupation. It is more than just employment.
Yes, 100%. And it has to be meaningful. If it's meaningful to you, then it becomes a priority for treatment. Or if it's meaningful, I think meaningful is really important in terms of how therapeutic OT can really be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be a meaningful task or activity for the client and whoever the stakeholders are. So, yeah.
Great. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you went to school, became an occupational therapist, and now you serve your students in a very unique way. Can you tell us more about that?
I own a company. It's called Twofish Therapy, and within my company, I've been scaling it out. I'm working so hard to try to find ways to make services affordable and accessible to all children. So right now,
that is tough.
Well, it's really difficult, especially in schools, in terms of the affordability piece and access to funding and whatnot. So and all the red tape that comes with trying to make change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now I'm working predominantly in private schools, okay? And within because there's the least amount of red tape there, and I appreciate that I have the most room in order to find and shape new models for providing services in school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the company in itself, we offer OT, speech, tutoring services, and educational specialty services, and some occupational therapy assistant services. So we're trying to scale the services out so that there's different varieties of treatment plans that are affordable to each family depending on their needs.
So do you have a clinic location and then you branch out to the private schools, or are you strictly going mobile and you go into the private schools?
I'm mostly mobile right now. Originally I had a clinic, but we were never in it. We were never in the clinic. So what I've done is I've partnered very closely with this one school that I'm working with. It's called Country Day School, and it's in Largo. And I basically stationed myself out of that school, and I'm working very closely with them in actually establishing a model where I can talk to you about that a little bit more later. But basically I place myself out of the one school, and then my therapists just kind of treat mobily in the other schools that we're in the area. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is great. Great model. My mobile is also a mobile model. I'm a cyber therapist, so I'm going from cyber school to cyber school, but the cyber schools are in kids' homes. So it's a public.
Oh, wow. So you're like teletherapy. Is this it? Is this
No,
the same?
I am actually going to the home. So I'm not doing teletherapy. I'm actually doing the children that need face-to-face, one-on-one, in person, which is meeting a gap in cyber that isn't met by the virtual environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I only treat 2 days a week. The rest of the week I am doing other things, which we can talk about down the road here a little bit. But yeah, so we're very similar in that model.
Very cool. That's nice. Yeah.
So
nice.
So tell me a little bit. Sorry about that. What, did you have something more to say?
No, it's okay. So in terms of like what we're doing uniquely here at this school that I was referring to before, that I work closely with, is that we're really problem solving and targeting best practices and new ways to identify children as young as possible who may have diagnoses such as dysgraphia or dyslexia or something like sensory processing disorder or motor coordination disorder or delay, or are just struggling. So unlike, the RTI process that's currently happening in schools, I'm one of the first, the OT is one of the first people that meets the child and screens and assesses the child.
Well, that's a wonderful thing. That doesn't happen in this area. That's
right.
Great.
So that would be like where your social worker would generally be. There's an OT in this model at that place. So we can look at that PEO model right off the hop and try to make decisions with the team, the multidisciplinary team, as to what's actually in the best interest of the child.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we're working, it's been working unbelievably. We've identified, and I'm able as an OT to, so they're currently using screening tools that I helped design. So it was my screening tool, and then the teacher's feedback from it. So it has all of their environments and all of their different tasks and things that we think are priorities for that developmental age. So the teachers use that screen and then hand it to me. And then I look at the scores on their screens and decide which ones I feel I need to screen and which ones I feel like maybe we could just do an observation in the classroom and provide some consultation for to help support meet some needs.
That's really cool. Then do you have CODAs then doing a lot of the direct treatment with the students?
I don't have a lot of CODA work right now, honestly. I'm working really hard at trying to get teachers doing a lot of work within the classroom, so really making it inclusive, having the therapies and the activities on the shelves within the classroom that are developmentally appropriate or within reach. And then I'm doing a lot of, the therapist is doing a lot of treatment, and then I'm making a lot of videos of myself for families and teachers to try to get them to do whatever additional services are needed.
I love it. I love it. I love your videos. I've watched a few of them. I love your videos.
Oh, thank you so much. So I'm working really, really, really hard at trying to find ways to make the therapy like that the children actually need, like what the child actually needs, accessible to them.
Mm-hmm.
So the videos are a part of that, and I have some handouts and involving the teachers and educating the teachers as much as we can through video or conference or screening tools are perfect way to get teachers on board. So that's, I think, you know, I'm really passionate about not just giving therapy, but giving an effective amount of therapy, like the amount of frequency the child needs, the amount of intensity that they need, and making sure that they get enough time with the actual treatment plan, you know? So that's what we're doing. We're trying to create new things here, be innovative for the kids.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
I'm really glad I reached out, because you and I have a very similar theory in that we really need to educate the teachers and the foundations of
100%.
writing, and they're not getting enough of it in school. So you are.
And it's not their fault. It's not their fault.
No, it's not their fault. It is not their fault. They're not getting the education in school.
And isolated from each other. Like we don't work closely enough as a multidisciplinary team that involves teachers in what we do in schools. So it's bridging that gap. Yeah, totally.
That's correct. So we talked a little bit about your staff, that you are using the PEO model and you're working with teachers and you don't have a lot of CODAs working with you. But tell me a little bit more about how much time of yours is spent with teachers versus students. How are you working those screening tools to make your day exciting, I guess, is what I'm looking at.
So I'm using like a cohorting system right now. So what I do is I look at the screening tools, and there's a number of items on each tool. So if a child has, you know, let's say it's scored out of 25, and say that they're only missing like 2 activities, 2 milestones or something on there, they would go into a group of children that would only need classroom support. So the next step would say they have a different percentage. They're in the middle margin. We have a lot of talk with teachers and a lot of planning for those middle type of, with coordinators in the school about what we're going to do next and how we're going to get parents on board, right?
Okay, so you're using, your screenings are more of a developmental model?
Yes, very much so.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it's one that you've developed yourself. It's not one that has been out there and published.
No, it's one that we use. Yeah.
I love it.
Together. Yeah. So then the middle group of kids, you know, those kids are more appropriate. We try to put them in groups with me first, small groups with me. And then we give the teachers intervention strategies for the classroom for them. And then for the kids with, you know, who are performing at less than 50%. Okay, so the kids who need maximal assistance to access education in their environment, we actually go right to OT full screen. And I start talking about whether occupational therapy is the best first stop, or if we should see psych ed, or where we should go in that that area. So,
so do you have a psych ed on staff, or are you using the school staff?
We refer out to the
Okay.
area. So there's a lot of local psychologists in the area that we know. We have a list of different therapists, and we allow the families the
okay.
privilege of being able to explore and decide which one they'd like to use best.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, that is just very interesting to me that somebody else is doing something similar to what I'm doing.
Great. I can't wait to hear what you're doing.
So one of the things I saw on your website is that you have your consent and your parental consent right there, that they can fill it out. I see with being in the school itself, it really makes things streamlined, and it's right there, it's documented. Is that the main reason you did that, to streamline your business, or were you finding it that you were not getting parental consent because they didn't have access to the forms? Like, how did that come about?
Well, I found this is the front end of access for therapy is the most time consuming. So I feel like, we would print the forms out and we would send the forms home, and then it could take forever for the forms to come back, or by the time it got through me to the teacher, to home, to the parent and filled out. So really that was just an effort to try to shorten up that time period and be able to tell the teacher to just say, just give the parent my card and tell them to go to the website, and the paperwork's right there, submit it, it's over and done with. So it was more of an efficiency thing.
Love it.
Than everything else, really.
And I love your questions that are on there. Those are great questions.
Oh, thank you so much. Great.
As I glanced down through it, I did a quick one. I didn't really go into detail, but looked great.
No, I am very much developmental from perspective, and I have a lot of, roots in sensory processing as well, from like a developmental, like a true sensory processing. So you can definitely see that in the questionnaires and the way that I practice this.
Yes, exactly.
And I understand that you, based on what I've read from you as well, you have a similar sort of philosophy.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yeah. Very, very much a sensorimotor base in the development of the whether dysgraphia is appropriate or not for the child.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But,
very interesting.
So what is your do-it-yourself treatment tool? What do you like to use that you carry with you all the time?
Oh my goodness, I carry a variety of things with me all the time. I know, I was thinking about this. This was the hard, look up all the questions that you gave me. This was the hardest thing for me to come up with. I'll post it online after I'm done, but I do this for a grip. I have a couple of things that I like. And just in like for accessibility, the elastic band trick, where you put the elastic band over the end of the pencil and you put half of it over the wrist, and then half of it
that one.
Or fit back into their. So you can. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I'll post a picture of it on my Instagram after this, how to do that. So elastic bands I use quite frequently. Another thing that I use a lot, that I just think is so versatile in terms of what you can do with it in relationship to dysgraphia as well, and for sizing, I feel like in terms of handwriting, so often the spatial relations and the spatial relationships and what's a just right fit for the child, especially when they're little. And I'm so passionate about early intervention. There's so many different types of papers for teachers, and teachers are often like not educated properly on what lines the child should have to sit the letter on, like what's developmentally appropriate really to be asking of this child for. I often honestly just bring a sheet of paper with me and fold it in different sections in order for teachers to be able to. So I'll show you what I mean. So like So I'll fold a piece with a piece of paper, I can take it and fold it in half. So say we're trying to work on letter formation patterns, then we have 2 letters. We could do a letter here, a letter here. We could actually do a letter here and a letter here. So these are for little ones. So we're just, we're working on learning how to make the letters the right way with the proper start points, sequences, strategies, you know, so we're not working on sizing as much as we are formation.
Right.
Then next session, you can fold that piece of paper in half again. Now you have even a smaller area or circumference. You can add your old letters and put your new letters on as well, right? On the next piece. So now you have 8 letters on there. So then the next thing that you can do is you can fold your paper down so that you have an addition. So now you're building. So in one piece of paper, from session to session to session, you can build upon all of the letters that you're making simply with just with a piece of paper that has built-in boundaries for the folded lines. Right?
I love it. Great idea.
Or doing letters, you can even, if you put it this way, you can do letters from left to right. If you put it this way, you're moving into little CVC words. Right?
Yep.
This same piece of paper, if you don't fold it in the middle and you just keep it lengthways, you can, it's a perfect size, equal portions for sentences.
Yes, it is.
Your top sentence goes right here for a kindergartner. I like cats or whatever. There's, you know what I mean? I love to it. So the first one. And if you have the children participate in folding, it is such a great bilateral integration task. And it's also a great task to assess planning, organization, instruction following. So I know DIY, it seems as simple as a piece of paper, but there's so many things that you can really just do with a simple piece. If you have a piece of paper on hand, you can support a child. Everybody has paper at school.
You have given me so many new ideas. I love it. Love it. So
what they need. Yeah.
So is that your favorite activity, or do you have another activity that's your favorite activity?
Oh my God, I love movement activities. Like I love getting up. I love like ball skills activities and sequencing. I'm a real sensorimotor nut. Like I love all of those like regulation tasks and like, I do a lot of scooter work. I do a lot of work with tapping balloons for eye-hand coordination, trying to keep it up in the air within boundaries and grading force. I do a lot of ball skill. I do a lot of ball skills work. I do a lot of ball skills in sequencing throws or catches.
So when you're talking about ball, you're talking about a small ball that you can hold in your hand, or are you talking about a therapy ball?
Okay, let me tell you. Okay, so you can, I often start with my kids who have poor ocular motor skills. Like this would be for our postural ocular children, like children who have poor core strength and also have a difficult time with ocular motor skills, right? So I'll often start all of my sessions with like what I call primers. So I hone in on the vestibular system, or if it's their motor skill system or something that incorporates as much of their area of deficit as I can, and design an activity or something fun that we can do to get those areas of the brain up and going before we apply it to activity. So before we're moving to handwriting, we're looking at whole body, whole brain in an activity. Okay, so get that brain lit up as much as we can.
So you are talking therapy ball, or you're talking one that you can hold in your hand. So you're talking about any ball in general.
Any ball, yeah. And I would go, like I generally would start with a bigger ball and see if they could be successful with the task. And then as they master that task, go to a smaller ball, like a tennis size ball. And then I think the most difficult ball that I use is like a racket ball.
Okay.
So we do skills like where we bounce the ball in front of us. We have to be able to bounce the ball in front of us 10 times at midline. And then we have to be able to bounce the ball with one hand. And then we have to be able to alternate hands with the ball. And then we have to be able to put the ball behind our back, or put the ball behind our leg, whatever the situation is. And then once we've learned how to do all of those individual ball skills, we then play a game where we we try to remember the sequence. So the first one is just to bounce it in front of you. And then I do that, and then the child would do that. And then the second one would be that they bounce it once in front of us, and then they bounce it and clap behind their back and catch it. And then the third one would be that they bounce it off the wall and catch it. So they have to remember, they build upon a sequence for memory, and they love it.
So it's kind of like Simon with the ball.
It's good. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Simon with the ball.
Yes.
I use Simon in the course that I have doing with the occupational therapist. Simon is one of the games that we use to talk a little bit about visual perception and memory and things.
Oh, fabulous.
So I like Simon too.
Yes, it is. Anything that builds on itself, like it's a great working memory. Like visual working memory is so key for our kids for school, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how much the auditory memory and the visual memory are so inclined together.
Yes.
And when one has a problem with one, they really have a problem with both.
Oh, 100%, definitely, because they need each other.
Yeah.
They're codependent.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I agree. So, and sometimes you do see, I do have a test that I do. It's called the TIPS, the test of information processing skills.
I use that one too. I'm glad I'm not the only one of only OT that uses it.
Right. Yeah. So I use it. So sometimes you will see differences. You will actually see preferences for learning. This is when I use that tool. And if there's an obvious, like a significant difference between their auditory skills and their visual processing skills, then I advocate for that in the classroom for the teachers to support that learning style. But most times I would agree with you that if there's a deficit in one, there's a deficit in the other, but there are definitely children who are visual learners, auditory learners, kinesthetic learners, and offering and advocating for the right supports makes the world of difference for them. Like think about children on the spectrum, for instance, oftentimes more visual learners than auditory learners. So yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. So what is your greatest challenge?
Oh, accessibility. I think getting the treatment that I know that would work and the amount of it that's needed in order to make the best differences and the biggest change to the child. That's what I work the hardest and most diligently at every single day. That's my biggest challenge.
Accessibility. Yep, I agree with you.
Like how do you generalize all of, like you spend so much time assessing a child and figuring out the ins and outs of that child and what's a just right challenge for that child and like what's a just right educational tool for that child, and then or a treatment plan, what's the best treatment plan going to be, and then it's trying to get them to be able to participate in that as much as you possibly can, even when you're not with them.
And getting them motivated to embrace what you're trying to get through to them so that they don't have constant refusal for what we're trying to accomplish.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So how much of your day is handwriting? You sound like your sessions are a lot of sensorimotor. I'm guessing that you only have this little bit of the day that you're actually handwriting, but you answer.
No, I do a lot. I do a lot of handwriting because I'm a school-based company. So generally that is the first indicator of the teacher when we're not in primary or preschool, where I was just talking about that model that we're using, in other environments, in other schools as well. One of the first indications to a teacher that an OT might be needed is obviously that fine motor. They're holding their pencil funny, their handwritings. So I get a lot of referrals for handwriting and see a lot of kids who have dysgraphia on a regular basis. A lot of times, the handwriting is not the root of what is going on that's causing the difficulty. But generally it's my first point of referral. It's the reason why I'm meeting the child. So, and with that said, if that's the priority goal for the family, then I have to work on it. You know,
Right.
like if that's what the family and the teacher really wants, then I
Right.
work. But I always try to start my sessions with that whole brain activity, away from the table, away from a pencil and paper, just to get the children motivated and get those areas in their brains lit up. And I understand you're interested in neuroscience and neuroplasticity as well. So yeah, right. So I like to start with something big and then move to the table that way. So, but I do a lot of handwriting. I do a lot of handwriting groups. I do a lot of one-on-one handwriting. I do a lot of, I go into classrooms and co-teach with teachers. So when they're having fine motor sessions, I'm there to help them. Yeah, I do a lot of handwriting. I get a lot of handwriting referrals for OT.
That's wonderful. I love it. A lot of what I am teaching is the co-teaching model, getting into the classroom, embracing that whole classroom activity and working your way up from there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love being in the classroom.
So, I'm not sure if this is a mood point on this next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So how does dysgraphia impact your day?
I think it's different with different kids, you know, like I feel like for some children, you know, I see these poor kids and we'll say behavior. I'll use behavior for an example in a group. I'll just use this as a specific example. So, you know, I'm having a group. I have 5 children in this group, and it's a sensorimotor group, and then we do letters and numbers and formation patterns and whatnot. So there's the little boy who just a series of avoidance behaviors, only like 5 years old, but has had such a negative experience with handwriting that early in life that they would literally rather get on the floor and hide under the table and be a complete distraction than even pick up a pencil. I was sincerely that young in life. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, and it started because they were forced in preschool to be writing and they weren't ready.
Right. They weren't ready to write. Yeah. And I also think that somebody wasn't listening when they were trying to tell them beforehand that this is too hard or this isn't a just right challenge for me. And what happens when a child's continuously pushed to do something that they're not good at is that it really starts to hammer at their self-esteem. And people do whatever they have to protect their self-esteem. So it's actually less offensive to get in trouble for being, and I'm going to use inappropriate language, a bad boy or a bad girl. Do you know what I'm saying? In their mind, like I would never use those words for school, but just to give you an example of, you know,
I totally agree.
It's less than it is to humiliate myself of trying to sit down and make that letter A again, knowing that I'm never getting it right, and all of my friends around me are having no problem with it. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, I totally know what you mean. And those kids, those kids get this what word? The self-esteem, they get this label, that's the word I was looking for, of being lazy, and they're really not. They're totally, they totally have that fight experience with their amygdala, and they just want to run the other way.
100%. And the association, because they've had so many negative experiences, and you have to understand, like, some of these kids do have some impulse issues as well too.
Uh-oh. What happened to Debbie? There she comes back.
The phone rang. I'm sorry, I got a call. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Not a problem. So we will bleep that out. But you were saying, what we were saying was that kids get this label of being lazy, and all we're trying to do is help them to overcome that label so that they don't enter into this cycle of bad behavior, as we
Yes,
quoted it.
yes, definitely. And then it snowballs, and it's just, it becomes,
Yes,
yeah. So, you know, it's really sad. So dysgraphia does definitely impact. Like, I'm grateful that I have the experience now to be able to identify that child, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of teachers, like I get a lot of referrals for behavior, and I sit down and I see, you know, that this isn't okay. This is where's the behavior rooted? It's rooted from low self-esteem and having unrealistic expectations put upon a child, you know?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think it, honestly, I think a lot of my experiences with kids with learning disabilities have made me like more empathetic and better at perspective. Like I love our job for that, in terms of like,
Yes.
growth, personal growth as a human being. You know?
Well, I love it. I love it.
So yeah, I guess really, yeah.
So the school environment has a lot of quirks. Now you're working private schools, so the special education staff is not the same. How do you feel that the collaboration has changed with your business doing the private schools from several years ago to today? Have you taken that time to develop those screeners while you were working in this job? Like, how did your collaboration develop?
Well, it started
Okay,
with,
we lost your video.
I know, here we go. Am I back again?
You are back again.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask that question again.
Okay,
So how has the collaboration been with all the other staff in your school over the last several years that you have worked in building this business that you have?
So it's been a while. So like the school that I'm working with right now, I've been working with on and off for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, where we are right now, I think it's amazing. Like we're working so well together as a unit, and in the best interest, for the best interest of the child. So we all have a similar vision and motivation, and that's helping children to access education in the environment that's going to be most supportive for their potential, their best potential in life, their fullest life. So we're all there with that. I think in growing that though, like, you know, there was a lot of mutual understanding that needed to develop, like me being able to take on the perspective of the teacher and what the teacher is doing on a day-to-day basis and what their responsibilities and obligations are, and her job description is, and vice versa, then me, and having a lot of conversations about that and respecting each other in each of our roles. That definitely played a massive role in being able to get to where we are right now as a team. Yeah. And then in other schools that I have a less of an involvement, and I really am, like, you know, I'm not a part of a team at these other schools that I go into, but I still get called for consultation and referral. That's a very different dynamic where I go in and I need to start at zero and educate a teacher on like so many, and like get buy-in and have, you know, build rapport. I know, you know, and like, you know, so that's a very different hat that I have to put on.
Yes.
But I'm fortunate enough that I've worked with a lot of the schools that I'm with for a long time, and I know a lot of the teachers, and I've built a lot of relationships with them. So, but I think education's key, and creating understanding and respecting each other is the first step for all of us to be working together from a multidisciplinary perspective.
I love this conversation. We could talk about this for forever, and this conversation needs to go in my course, because I really need the other clients, the other OTs that I'm teaching. Somebody's already doing what I'm educating people on. So I think I want to add this to my course that I'm teaching people as well. This is a great conversation. So thank you.
Oh, lovely. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So this is the point in the conversation where you get to ask me questions, and I know you've been dying to ask me a couple.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yes, definitely. Okay. So you're doing consultation for dysgraphia.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been in
I
those for 20 years.
I have developed a Dysgraphia Questionnaire. It is not fully out there into the world because I'm still working on some back end materials for it. But I've developed a Dysgraphia Questionnaire, and what I'm trying to decide and determine with that is if we can really zero in on that visual perceptual, is it visual motor, is it visual memory, that's really the foundation behind the dysgraphia being the issue. So at this point I have the questionnaire created, but what I don't have is the really good solid results of people answering that. So at this point in time, what I'm asking people to do with the Dysgraphia Questionnaire is fill it out, follow up with me, make a phone call. We have a discussion on how the results look so that we can develop a treatment plan for the student. And I'm really then taking the results of that and I'm looking at it from a back end. So I'm still in preliminary stages with that. I'm still like piloting it, but I really see that those bottom three pieces of that pyramid on dysgraphia, the visual spatial, the visual motor, and the visual memory, and the foundation there, putting it to language and then putting it to a cognitive level of writing, are really, there are some real distinguishing questions that are
So is that a model, that pyramid that you have, is that something that you designed, or
yes, I designed that
based on research? Okay.
Yeah, I designed that.
Okay.
Based on the research that I found, but yeah, I designed that.
Oh, okay. It's that. Yeah, I think it's a fabulous model. I think I like things that are abstract and made very concrete visually. It makes learning and education easier. So yeah, I really liked it. If you want to share your questionnaire with me and get my feedback and talk to me about it, I'd be happy to as well.
Oh, I would love that. I'd
be more than happy to do. If you want to talk after this and we can talk about that, I'd be more than happy to help you in any way. Yeah,
I would appreciate that.
I do see a lot of kids in the area with dysgraphia, so I'd be more than happy to help you.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Okay. So back to the dysgraphia piece. So these different subtypes of dysgraphia are subtypes that you've identified through research that aren't available yet for us to diagnose. Is this correct?
So how my project came about was I had a bunch of twice exceptional children. Twice exceptional children are those that are gifted, but they also have a learning disability. And what I was finding, because they were referred to me, but what I was finding was even ones that I was just hearing about out in the world, their disability was with writing. So they were excelling in reading, they were excelling in math, they were excelling in all these things that they were doing orally. They go to put it on paper and they were falling flat on their face.
Oh my gosh, I know. I have so many of those kids. I actually have a kid. Yes.
And I kept getting this question from parents, how can my child read at a 10th grade level and not be able to write? And I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
And based on all my years of sensorimotor education, I'm thinking there's got to be a sensorimotor link to this because it has to be developmental. There has to be something developmental. And what I have found was it really does. It's really, you got that visual spatial piece, you've got that motor piece, you've got the memory piece, and if you don't have that bottom foundation, you can't move on to the language part.
100%.
And then if you don't have understanding of syntax and word formation and those pieces, getting to that cognitive level and being able to be creative doesn't happen. And so we're asking these kids in math class to give them an explanation of how did you figure out the problem? And they're going, I don't know. They can't figure out how to put the language down on paper that it makes logical sense. because they don't even have the foundation skills and remember
Right.
and have memory working. And I really feel that memory should, sometimes I even feel that memory should even be below the sensory motor piece, but yet developmentally it doesn't totally make sense. But I really think that that negative emotional memory that comes along with the difficulty is the biggest barrier to dysgraphia.
Right.
And
Definitely.
and from a mental health standpoint, if there is an ADHD or an autism diagnosis as well, it kicks them into a different category. It's no longer a specific learning disability. And I've been really trying to focus my attention and my research on how specific learning disabilities are interacting with the world, even though most of my history has been neurological in nature.
Very interesting. So are you finding, so when you finish your assessment, you identify these children who have dysgraphia, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're going to the bottom of the pyramid and you're providing treatment strategies there first, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
The first point of breakdown, right?
It's just like what we would do.
Yeah. That goes up the ladder, and you identify that there's a breakdown on the bottom, you're going to intervene at the bottom.
I'm intervening at the bottom. I'm doing that whole same sensory motor processing that AIRS created back in the 70s.
Definitely.
One of the things that I've tried to really work on is that level 2 and how OT can really work on word sequencing and support the speech therapist in different activities and help them work on sentence syntax, and really trying to give some visual ideas on how to work on it. Because another thing I found is kids just don't know what a noun, a verb, an adjective, an adverb, a pronoun, a preposition. They just do not understand parts of speech.
No, not at all.
And I can tell you this, being a mild dysgraphic myself, I find that part of treatment the hardest because that's where I'm the weakest.
Well, I think that, you know, for these kids who have these breakdowns in this bottom area or in the language area or whatever, as we go up to the top, right? Mm-hmm. They're using these different areas of, like, none of this is automatic. None of this is just happening for them.
No,
so they're using their thinking skills in the area of their brain that generally is used for being creative and coming up with sentences and coming up with ideas and being innovative. They're having to use those areas of their brain to execute these lower areas when they're reading and writing, right? So what happens, I find, with kids with language problems who don't have any foundation in syntax or have any understanding of the English language, or what a correct sentence, what is the recipe for making up a sentence? They don't even know how to do that. They have no idea how to compensate for their own disability because they have no idea. It's not coming to them.
And there's not a lot of help out there outside the whole Orton Gillingham platform.
Right.
Gillingham has really given a good foundation for the dyslexia community. One of the things that I found that has happened is Dyslexia Community has tried to encompass everything in specific learning disability together, and they don't know how to delineate a kiddo who is dyslexic versus dysgraphic versus dyscalculic. I say that word correctly. And they're trying to pull them all under one umbrella, and they're not quite the same. But the ones that really were confusing me is the ones that really could read above grade level and couldn't write. And that one could, with the whole platform of specific learning disability, had me confused.
Right. So interesting. Yeah. Well, that's that. I'm so happy you're doing this work. So are you interested in designing a tool maybe, or like
I would love it, but I do not want to have to go back to school to do it.
Right. Yeah,
I really, and I will tell everybody,
I wouldn't want to go back to school either.
yeah. I've told everybody, I said, at this point in time, I want to be a facilitator for the research, not participate in the research. So
Right.
what I'm looking at from the research perspective is taking the ideas of the research projects,
Yeah.
handing them to a school, saying,
Yeah.
here's a research project that needs to be done. Here's the foundation of where I've begun. Can you help me and give me the results when you're finished? And so I've been working a little bit with some universities to get that ball rolling.
Because there's a lot of like evidence-based practice in graduate schools that students have to do their research projects.
Yes.
They would be happy to, and I know that like at the school that I went to, there always looks, sorry, just 1 second.
It's too bad we can't turn off the phone along with the Zoom, right?
I know. They're always looking for people to, our clinicians in the community to offer up ideas for evidence-based projects.
Yes.
That might be a great route.
And that is one of my dreams, is to actually be a hub for dysgraphia research and have that disseminated out and have research projects going on in different schools and from the university perspective and different schools from an elementary perspective, and having that whole collaboration. That is one of my long-term dreams.
Oh, we're fabulous. Good for you. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Very good.
So do you have any other questions?
Not right now. I would like to talk more though, outside.
No, that's fine. Before we end the interview today though, I'd like to ask you one thing.
Sure.
The American Occupational Therapy Association uses living life to the fullest as their tagline for OT month. What does that mean to you?
I think you're living life to your fullest when you are spending your pie of life. You know, have you ever used the treatment model, the pie of life?
Mm-hmm.
Is full of the most meaningful occupations that you can have. So whatever, you just need to be participating and aware of what it, like, do you ever hear the expression, if you don't run your day, your day's gonna run you?
Yes.
Right. So I think that, you know, living life to the fullest is being self-aware enough to know what is meaningful and what truly makes you happy in life, and participating in that and setting goals and being happy and being engaged in those things that really light your soul up. So
I love it. Love the answer. And it's amazing to me how every occupational therapist I've asked that question comes up with such a different answer. It is so cool.
Oh, really?
So as the YouTube channel starts to embrace more views, you have to listen to the end of the videos so that you can get to that question for everyone. But that one is one that I've been asking of everyone. Now, another question I'm asking of everyone is, do you have a favorite podcast and book that you can recommend?
I don't.
Okay. So you don't have time to podcast.
I'm a terrible person for favorites. I have, like, if you go to my Instagram or my Facebook, you will find all kinds of resources, but I am terrible for just saying, I thought about that and I'm like, you know what, I can't do that. I don't know. I can't pick just one. So there's a variety of resources on the Twofish Instagram. By all means, go there and check it out. But oh my gosh, there's so many great books I've read over the years that I love so much. So, and the same with podcasts, I listen to a variety. So I wouldn't want to just pick one.
That's okay. Not a problem. I must confess, I stole this idea from Read to Lead podcast by Jeff Brown. He is an amazing business coach, and
cool.
He asks his interviewees that question about books, and it's amazing how many different books the people come up with. And when I asked this about podcasts, I get so many different varieties of OT podcasts versus business versus personal development podcasts. It reveals a little bit about how we live life to the fullest in our personal time.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I have an actual resource list with a variety of books on it for the company. I'd be happy to share if you want me
wonderful.
to.
Wonderful.
So, that I use for different websites and like international and national organizations that have great evidence resources on them, and like just my favorite reads for supporting different types of disabilities. So if I'd be happy to share that,
we will put that link in the show notes then when this goes up on YouTube. So tell me, is there a freebie other than that list that you would like to share, or something else that you'd like to share before we close for the day?
I think if they were a freebie, like a handout sort of freebie, or
yep, something that they can take off your website.
Okay, so there is. I would be happy to share a screener. So if somebody is motivated enough to reach out to me, teacher or therapist, reach out to me, my email address.
And we're going to make sure I put all the links to contact you in the show notes. So there we go. There goes that phone call again.
Sorry, some people are calling me. I'm so sorry. My phone is always ringing. It's ridiculous.
No, that is understandable. We are busy people. We're business leaders, and we are pioneering new adventures in occupational therapy. So we will put a link to your screener in the show notes.
Oh, fabulous! Great.
So, while I'm ready to close, do you have anything more you want to say before I end the interview?
Thank you.
You're welcome. It was wonderful to talk with you.
So yeah, and honestly, let's touch base after this and see if there's any way we can support each other in our ventures.
Exactly.
I'd
Wonderful.
be more than happy to look at that questionnaire for you and give you any feedback that comes to mind.
For now, this is Sherry Dottery, your Dysgraphia consultant. I've been talking today with Debbie Lund at Twofish Therapy. It is wonderful to have you here with us today. And for now, see you later.
Thank you.
All right.